All right, well, welcome to everyone that is tuning in today. Looks like we just have a couple more people coming on, I'm sure. So we can kind of go ahead and get started, do some little basic background information, and then get going. So hi, everyone. My name is Liz Heisler. I'm an assistive technology consultant for Saltillo, and today I'm leading the webinar on an implementation toolkit for AAC, Achieving Authentic Communication. So I'm looking forward to working with you all today. This is an hour-and-a-half training, so excited to be here. Just a few housekeeping items before we really get started. Just so you know, the presentation will focus solely on Saltillo products. It won't include information regarding other similar related products or apps. Some disclosures too. Financially, I'm an employee owner of Saltillo Corporation. I'm also an ASHA member and a SIG 12 AAC member. I did want to go ahead and just at least show my webcam and introduce myself to all of you as well. I know that's important sometimes when we're on these web calls, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Wonderful. Hi, everyone. So nice to be here with everyone. Like I said, I'm Liz Heisler. I'm an assistive technology consultant for Saltillo. I live about 2 hours west of Chicago in Illinois, and I currently cover southeast Iowa, all of central Illinois, and all the way up to southwest Chicago as well. So excited to be here with everyone, and we'll go over some more little housekeeping things and then get started. All right. Just some little information. So just so you know, you should see this screen on your side. You are muted right now. If you'd like to click and unmute yourself, you're welcome to. But if you can, actually, you can always click to raise your hand if you'd like, or you can actually, what would be easiest is if you could type in a message here and just either send it to everybody or myself, or there's another organizer on here, Kim Gallant. She's on as well. And we'll be checking those and looking for any chats that come available. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. You can kind of expand and control that control panel up here as well. You should have seen there is a materials section on here. If you kind of click that plus sign and drag it down, you'll see that there's quite a few materials here for you to reference during the presentation. The one thing I did want to show you is the ASHA CEU participant form. And so if you want ASHA CEUs for this training, you're going to have to go ahead and complete that form. And then there's an ASHA CEU Saltillo online submission guide. And so just go ahead and follow those steps to be able to submit it online to get credit. Again, anytime you see this little toolbox on a slide, this means that there is a material in the material section that kind of relates to that, and I'll make sure to let you know as we go through that. There's also these little icon of writing, pencil and paper here. That will reference a hands-on activity that you'll be completing. Okay. You also have in that materials section. There's a great packet in there. A handout, and you'll have notes pages in that packet as well that you'd be able to take notes down. I know a lot of us are on a webinar, so if you didn't print those out ahead of time, that is perfectly fine. Go ahead and jot down some of your questions or notes, on another piece of paper, and then you can, go ahead and print those out and transfer them over, or however you best keep all of your materials. I know everybody does that a little bit differently. But just so you know, a lot of the information the handouts, the actual PowerPoint is not available. However, a lot of the information will be followed along in the materials guide. So if you're looking for anything specific, it will be in there. And if you have any questions at the end that's not in there that I said, feel free to let me know and I'll make sure to give you that information. Okay. Kim, do you have anything you want to add that I missed before we get started?
I don't think so.
Okay, wonderful. Just wanted to double check.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so Kim is our organizer at Saltillo who helps organize all these online webinars, so she's a wonderful resource. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. Our agenda for today is really focusing on communication, right? It's achieving authentic communication. And when we look at communication, we're going to look at authentic communication, what that means, functions of communication, communication partners, the environments as well. And then we're going to talk about creating communication opportunities and what that really looks like for everyone, and then some other tips and tools that we have available to you as resources through Saltillo. So before we really get started, I'd love to do a quick poll as who is here. And so there's a poll here, I think. So if you go ahead and just go ahead and click who is here, if you're, teacher, speech path, aide, parent, AT specialist, maybe other. And we'll just take a quick second here to go ahead and fill that out if you see the poll in your tab there. Okay, so it looks like most everyone has done that. So you can see that, about 82% of us are SLPs, are speech assistants. We have paraprofessional, a parent, and then we also have some AAC consultants, AT specialists as well. So it's wonderful. We have a great mixed group here, so we'll definitely have a lot of great opportunities for you to go ahead and share, your experiences as we move forward. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. So we're going to get started with authentic communication and what that really means. So when we look at what does authentic mean, if we grab out a dictionary, good old Webster, they refer to authentic meaning something that is real or genuine. Okay, so when we think about that in the communication sense, everyone wants to communicate in a variety of ways for a variety of different reasons. But when we think about something that's real or genuine, it's sometimes more than just requesting or labeling, right? The ability to, order a pizza over a hamburger is important, but how does that compare to the ability to, tell someone you love them, right? A lot of times when we're talking about real or genuine, it's spontaneous, it's unique, but it's efficient. And it really allows people to connect with you and the AAC user to connect with those around them, all right? Really, when we talk about this, the focus is really on the AAC's on the student's AAC communication rather than their device. So I'm going to read you a brief story here, and I want you to really think about whether this is authentic communication for this AAC user. So a 61-year-old man, post-stroke, is living in an assisted living facility. He obtained a device, and after only a few weeks, he was able to independently use the device to state his name, age, and other personal information. So let's go ahead and think, is this successful implementation? Just think in your head, maybe write it down really briefly. Yes or no? Let's say yes, it was successful implementation. Why? Because the staff viewed the device as successful because the AAC user met his objectives. For the staff, the purpose of the device had been to exchange information, right? He'd met his goals. I know there's a lot of SLPs in the room, AT consultants, right? We're always worried about meeting those goals. And to them, yeah, he achieved communication, authentic communication, because he met those goals. But I want you to look at it in a different way. Let's say we say no. This is not successful implementation. Why would that be? The AAC user didn't care about stating his personal information. Most people already knew that, or he would pull out his license or ID card or something like that. He wanted the device to talk with his grandkids. How important, right? It always tears me up a little bit. For the AAC user, the purpose of the device had been to maintain social closeness. He didn't care about exchanging personal information, right? His purpose was to maintain the social closeness. And I think that's so important as we move forward to really who defines that authentic communication. And we're going to get into that. I love this. The only way to know what is real for the client is to understand what the device user wants to achieve through talking with others, just like we learned previously. This is a great picture here, and it's hard. Let me explain it really fast. So a consultant was out, and this student was using this purple device, okay? And they showed her another device that had a lot more vocabulary on it, right? She was using a Word Power 30, which is an older vocabulary set, and they showed her word power 60. Okay. She was so excited that she said, please I use on her old device, because she really wanted to use the word the one she's touching currently, the blue device, with the higher vocabulary. Okay. So it just goes to show you that, a reduced vocabulary doesn't always reflect the user's knowledge of the world or his cognitive abilities. And it all comes back to understanding that not being able to talk doesn't mean you have nothing to say. So when we really want to think about communication, it's about the people. It's not about the computer technology or the AAC system. You have a device for yourself or your student, so a lot of times it's easy, right? You just put the device in front of the student and you're done, right? I know that process of getting a device can sometimes be exhausting, and I know I've been there. But unfortunately, just putting the device in front of the student, it's not what we have to do. Finding the appropriate device is only the first step in a long process. The technology is simply a tool. So, too often we interpret AAC intervention as just providing that AAC technology. And I want you guys to really think about that it doesn't begin and end with the getting a new device, right? It starts with getting the device. Too often we focus so much on that single piece of technology and not understanding that communication is a multimodal process involving the integration of a range of means of communication, intents, environments, and partners. So that just means, like I've said, technology is the tool, and people and their interactions between them must be our main focus. There's a great article by Katie Ahern. She says, set it and forget it, right? Set it up. Turn the speech device on, turn the talker, the voice, whatever you call it on, and then take the focus off of it. The device is the tool. It is your child's voice, but in reality, the focus is on the interaction and the connection. And we'll go back to modeling and everything like that on the device later in this presentation. But, the end goal is communication, because that's the essence of human life. That's what we want. And so I just want you to understand how important it is that the technology, the device, is really just a tool. And we're really going to talk about communication and the interactions between people and how we can focus on that to, greater implement AAC and really help our AAC users. So, I know all of you know what communication is, right? But I want you just to think about communication in this way, as a really complicated multimodal process that involves, the interaction of communication functions, it involves environments, and it involves communication partners. And it's constantly changing, right? It's a two-way process. And ultimately, the success of the AAC intervention depends not just on the individual that requires AAC, but their communication partners. I always give this example. My function of communication, at Starbucks, because my environment is at Starbucks, is going to be requesting that latte from the barista. But my function of communication is a lot different when I come home and see my husband after I've been gone for a week of traveling, because I'm at home and I, want to say, oh, I missed you, right? Those are two different ways, and that's how communication is just so multimodal and just involves so many different things. So when we look at first what is communication, we're going to focus on the functions of communication. So the purpose or reasons for which we communicate. This is really important. So when we look at the functions of communication, it's really not sufficient for us to just have access to the means to simply request. We need access to full communication, to build relationships with peers, to learn at school, to share their expertise on the job, to manage healthcare needs, to participate successfully as full citizens of society. This is based on research that we just need to see more functions of communication. So what does that look like? Well, we start first with, okay, so we functions of communication, yes, there's one sector of communicate wants and needs. That is important, right? We want to communicate, what we want, whether it be food or, like I said, my Starbucks latte, or toys for our clients. It's usually highly predictable, okay? And sometimes it's more than just communicating wants and needs, as well as communicating like actions of like, go, I want to stop, things like that as well. Some other functions of communication, we can group them all together as exchange information. This would be, asking and answering questions, and we'll go over some of those ideas in just a little bit. The next one would be another function of communication. We can group it together as developing social closeness. The goal is to really establish, maintain, and develop like that interpersonal relationship. These messages are really important, and they're often unpredictable. And then fulfilling social etiquette. It's another group, right? Those please and thank yous, those how are yous. And for the purpose of today, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of combine that third and fourth areas of functions of communication into one as social closeness and etiquette. So first, we're going to talk about communicating wants and needs and what that looks like as a function of communication. So one way we think about communicating wants and needs is requesting objects, which I know we've all worked on before and known. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you a quick video of Meredith. She's telling everyone that she wants to eat something, and you'll see here. I love that video because I just think she knows what she wants, and now she's looking for it, right? She knows. I love her, even her nonverbal, expression there, or her, her face. I just think that's such a wonderful example of her really requesting what she wants. Other ideas of kind of that fall under communicate wants and needs are requesting help, requesting attention, requesting an activity, requesting permission. You can direct it to stop, like I mentioned before. You can direct an action. We're going to see another quick video about that as well. So here, they're going to target the word go. And I really like how she works on this. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video now.
Whenever it was time for me to turn the page, I want you to say go. Okay? Sure thing.
All right, so those were the functions of communication around, those communicating wants and needs. Now we're going to go over to exchanging information and what that looks like. So exchanging information can be answering questions or asking questions, right? So I want to show you a video again of Meredith, and she's going to be asking a question here. It's going to be related to her pasta that she wanted. I love the look on her face. She's like, yeah, where is my pasta? Is it ready yet? Right? That's such an important communicative function to teach. So many of our young children, want to ask those questions, like, is it ready yet? Like, are we there yet? Right? And I just think that's a really important communicative function to target. Right? Some other functions of communication under exchange information would be relaying past events, sharing and showing objects, so like a show and tell, discussing upcoming events. One of my favorite stories about relaying past events, which I think it's so important to always, model and talk about past events. I had a student who was trialing a device, and he brought the device from his dad's house to mom's house. Parents were divorced, and at mom's house, he came up and said, motorcycle fell, hurt, bleed on the device. He was just trialing it. And mom figured out that he was able to, and he had a Band-Aid on his knee, and here he was riding a bike, not a motorcycle. He was 11. And he had fallen, and he had cut up his knee a little bit. And so, how important it is to be able to exchange that information and to think about, to make sure our AAC devices have those abilities to relay those past events. So he was able to tell his mom what happened. Stating opinions, I think, is really important. I don't like it. Confirm or denying it. Labeling is also can kind of be under exchange of information. And also stating personal information, which I know a lot of us, we talk a lot about as something that's very important, in the school setting or even, outside the school setting for families. So just an example of what that would look like here. This is Drew.
Oh, can you tell me again? Okay. Nice to meet you. What is that?
So that was a great example that really leads nicely into, developing social closeness, because he was asking that consultant there more information in order to get to know her. So those are great, kind of, it relates into exchanging information, but also those functions of communication related to social closeness and etiquette. So really, when we're thinking about developing social closeness, our goal is to establish, maintain, or develop an interpersonal relationship. Okay, so it's to greet or close, it's to tease, take turns, express feelings, play games, comment, gossip, tell jokes, which is always a fun one. And it's so important to make sure that, all of your AAC videos have that ability to be able to do all this. All of your AAC devices have that ability. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to skip through that. All right, so kind of a quick note about vocabulary that I do want to add, because I get this question a lot. When we're talking about the functions of communication, it's important to note what words we use for those different functions of communication. And we also have to keep in mind the client's language level, right? So are they at the 1 to 3 word stage? Are they at the 4 to 6 word? It's also important to realize what your client can or cannot say with his or her vocabulary system, like I went back to. There are certain limitations with certain files, and so to make sure that your vocabulary file is not going to limit that client from really achieving that authentic communication. So it might look like, I want to eat for some people under, that communicating wants and needs, but it might just look like eat for others. Same with, looking at the exchange information. My name is, being able to, relay that personal information versus, I played at the park. Might be a little bit more of your advanced users. They've used it for some time. Or maybe they're really new and they're already at a 3 to 6 word, 3 to 4 word, 5 word, 6 word level. All right. And then same with that social closeness and etiquette. Did you know what he did? That might be for your users that are at a higher language level, rather than maybe uh-oh or I love you, which are just one button on like a word power 60 basic file. All right. Other quick notes about spelling, we also want to consider how the words in our client's vocabulary system are organized. Like I said with the I love you, there are sentences already pre-programmed in there. There are spelling as well, like I just showed. The sentences, that was really important for Drew, that one video that we looked at when he was asking, personal information questions. It's just nice to be able to use quick communication when needed, or when the communication is really predictable and relatively stable. That's really helpful. There's also phrases might help, and then words as well too. So you can use a variety of all of that, a combination, but it's just important to make sure we're using it at the client's language level and making sure that their AAC device has the ability to meet those functions of communication. So maybe just take a quick second and really think about maybe the AAC user that you are considering when you're on this training, or the AAC users that you work with, and kind of how their vocabulary is organized and making sure that they can reach all those different communicative functions. All right, so we have our first activity of the day. We are going to go ahead and I want you to pull out, or maybe you don't have it out and that's okay, but there is a handout here that lists on the top, it says thinking about your communication, right? And it has kind of what do you say in the middle with the numbers 1 through 10. All right, so what I want you to do, and if you don't have the sheet, that's okay. What I want you to do is just take a quick second and just jot down maybe the first 10 things you said today. And since we're already in the afternoon for a lot of people, you can go ahead and maybe jot down the first 10 things you said during lunch, or the last 10 things you said. Just go ahead and really quickly just jot down kind of what you said. And I'm going to do it too because I think it's important. Just really quickly, I'll give about maybe 1 minute. We'll go through that. It might look something like this when you get done. Okay, so as you can see, we've kind of done this activity already, but if we look at, with this consultant, there's another consultant that did this for us. What did she say in the morning? She said, good morning, are you using this treadmill? You can tell maybe where she's at, right? Updates look great. It's over there on top of the water cooler. Have a good day. And then maybe she, went to a store or something like that for the rest. Okay. So what I want you to do now is go ahead, and if you've done it on the piece of paper that is there for you under the materials section, that's awesome. If you just have it on a sheet of paper, that's great. And what I want you to do is kind of put a check mark next to each one, and whether it's a wants or need, a wants or needs, I should say, an exchange of info, or for social closeness and etiquette. Like why you communicated those things. Were they wants or needs, exchange of information, or social closeness and etiquette? And I'll just give you about a little bit of time to just kind of go through and kind of jot down, what each one was. And sometimes you can see here, I'm going to show you in a second, they can overlap a little bit. So as you can see here, what we did, good morning was for social closeness and etiquette. Are you using this treadmill would be kind of like a want and need, but also more exchanging information. And if you look down and just kind of go through and kind of see which ones you had the most of. So did you have the most of wants or needs, exchanging information, or social closeness and etiquette? Did anybody have the most in wants or needs and wants to reach out in the chat window? I don't know about you, but I had the most in exchanging information, and close second was social closeness and etiquette. All right. And as you can see, that's what happened here too on our example on the homepage. So what does this mean? Well, what I want you to think about, so this is kind of how if we, actually graph this, represented it graphically, most people find the majority of their communication occurs to exchange information or develop social closeness. So the next question is, how does this compare to your client's communication? If we look at functions of communication over time, we start out with an infant and young child, and you can kind of see how maybe about half is social closeness and etiquette. We still have a lot of wants and needs, and exchanging information really isn't quite there yet. But as we move into school and elementary and secondary, you can see how that importance of it kind of changes. You can see how, as we go through school and vocational activities, there's greater attention given to social interaction, but also exchange of information, because that's important as we learn. And even if we go up higher into older adults, that need for social closeness may continue to increase, but it also always depends on the need of the client and their independence of activities of daily living. But only giving someone wants and needs, right, is only giving them a part of the pie. So it's really not authentic. Okay, and I want us to think about that. So only giving someone access to wants and needs on an AAC device is not truly giving them the whole, what we want to communicate for, and what everybody wants to communicate for, which is really that social closeness and etiquette. I truly think. I mean, yes, you can see it's to exchange information, and there's definitely going to be wants and needs still, but the majority is going to be that social closeness and etiquette. And it kind of goes back to, like, can you achieve authentic communication if you only had one piece? So thinking about that AAC user, I want you to really, and I know we're in this group, and I just go along with me. Go ahead and raise your hand individually, that's fine. If you've helped a client communicate wants and needs, keep your hand up if you've helped a client exchange information. Keep your hand up if you've helped a student communicate using, share like some social closeness, right? Kind of develop relationships. And keep it up if you've helped a student, communicate social etiquette messages, or even, help build those social interactions. So maybe not everybody still has their hand up, right? And that's okay, but it just goes to show you how important every single communicative function is. I love this quote, and it's a woman. It's truly amazing device, especially coming from a person who's been speechless for 40 years. I can now express myself fully, communicate with friends. I use it daily, and I'm so lost without it, right? She defined the ability to express herself fully by the ability to communicate with friends, which I think is so important. So we're going to do another quick activity that I hope will help you in working with your clients. There's another resource on within the materials section. It's called Choosing Functions of Communication Client First, and it looks like the picture you see on the screen. So what we're going to do is actually, I'm just going to show you an example just to see it. But what we'll do is based on your client, you think about that client and select 4 functions of communication to target. All right, so you can see the functions of communication on the bottom right-hand side. So we selected requesting objects, greeting peers, directing action, and commenting. Maybe the ones you select on your sheet or you want to think about is, maybe it's requesting information, or teasing, or taking turns, or expressing feelings, right? Just think about that client and maybe think about some goals that you have or what you want those communicative functions to be. Next, what you want to do is jot down a few phrases that can be targeted within those functions of communication. So under greet peers, you have hi, how are you, what's up, guess what, right? Under direct action, you go, I do it, turn it on, right? Under commenting, you have I like that, that's cool, cool beans. Under requesting objects, you can read, play ball, I want cookie, I want that, right? And then you can also insert a picture of your client here, all right? So this is just a quick way to make sure we're targeting other communicative functions beside requesting. Just a nice worksheet. And you should have a blank one like in your materials. And I've had some teams where, we're just having a hard time figuring out, what's the next goal or what's the next step. This is a really nice resource to use with school teams, to use with parents at home, whatever it might be. But just a nice, here's that little speech bubble, and here are some things that we can have, the client say, and we can model with the client to make sure we're hitting all those different functions of communication. We're going to go back to what is communication and kind of go next, but I just want to take a quick moment and make sure there's not any questions that I can answer really quickly. I know we've gone over already 2 handouts. Just want to take a quick moment. We'll go ahead and continue, but please feel free to use that chat window if you have any questions. So our next section we're going to talk about under what is communication is the environment. Like we said, communication is a multimodal process. And when we look at environment, we want to think about the how and where we communicate. Communication and interaction it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? The environment has such an impact on the way we all communicate. How and where an AAC device is used, how it's set up, where it's positioned, how communication partners can access it, and other really practical factors. need to be considered when we look at the environment. So when we look at features of the environment, like I said, we look at who is communicating, who are the communication partners, what is happening, what is heard, what is seen, what is felt, where things are located, the device, where is it? Is it on a shelf or is it in front of the student? The AAC user, the communication partners, the objects. There's also other factors to consider too, storage and accessibility, time, other potential threats for damage, like water, some saliva sometimes, peers, could be features of the environment that you have to consider. So when we consider the environment, let's go ahead and analyze this situation. So our AAC user is circled in purple there on the floor playing with the blocks. So let's look up who is communicating, which is the AAC user, and who is the child communicating with? Most likely the peer sitting across from him. It looks like the teacher's in blue standing up. There might be a classroom aide somewhere, but we see the other peers sitting at the table. When we think about what are the children doing? They're playing. What is the staff doing? Looks like just observing. Maybe what do you see? What do you hear? Those are all important things to think about. And then where is the device? I don't know if anybody noticed it, but it's, on top of the shelf. Where are the toys? They're right in front of them. The communication partner, where is he? Well, or she, he or she might be the peer sitting right there on the rug, or maybe it's the teacher that's standing up. Maybe she walked away and just is coming back right now. Let's talk about, how could we change this environment to help foster communication? Does anybody have any ideas? Want to type in the chat window? Oh, yeah, move the AAC closer to user. Thank you, Molly. Yes, you can move the AAC device closer. The device should not be up on the shelf, okay? You can put some of the toys up or out of reach, right? That's always important. They're all accessible, so he doesn't have to, request any of them. You can have the teacher closer to help prompt and model as needed. The other thing you could do too, I thought of, you could give the peer, a low-tech board, or maybe if you have touch chat on an iPad or something like that as another device, then maybe they can model on their own device, right? With the peer, how fun would that be, right? So all those different things we have to think about when we think about the environment, how to really foster communication. So let's go ahead and consider another environment. I love this environment to consider. So we're out at a restaurant, okay? And we kind of think about who. So who is communicating is the woman circled in gray. Who's she communicating with? She's sitting with her friend, it appears. They're at a restaurant. They're probably going to be talking to the waiter. What is seen, what is heard, what is felt. All these things are really important to consider. And I'm just saying these now because they'll be important to consider later on when we do some activities. But some things, do you have any ideas of changes that might need to happen to facilitate better communication? Yeah, the device is on the table. Device should be out of the bag. Correct. Yes, device should be out of the bag. Awesome. The other thing you can do is going ahead and sitting. Another thing we thought of is that her friend, could sit next to her, not across from her, to be able to, help the device user model or different things like that. Make sure, the other good idea is to make sure the amp is charged on the device and make sure we can turn it up loud enough so that it can be heard in a noisy environment. Things to think about when we think about the environment. Maybe even have some pre-programmed sentences to help expedite that ordering process. If we look at the menu ahead of time, we know what we'd like. Having some of that information too could be helpful when we consider the environment. Thank you all who wrote in, Emily and Heidi and Lauren and Molly, thank you. So what I want you to do is, if you go back to that first sheet that we worked on here, and you, like I said, if you don't have it in front of you, that's okay. I'm just looking at, where you wrote down the 10 things you said, or the first 10 things you said today, or 10 things you said at some point during the day. And to the left-hand side of that is actually the environment. And so what I want you to do is just kind of maybe put down a couple things that, all right, where were you when all that stuff was being said? For me, when I wrote it down, everything was said at home. You know, I was at home, but some things, you know, I was in the kitchen or I was on the phone, which is important to note how that changed, you know, my communication. All right. So this is really just showing you that the factors in our environment prompt us to communicate. And this is why environment is so important. So you can do that on your own if you want to, but just kind of note that's what. You can see how this changed with her. You know, she walked into the hotel gym, the child was on the treadmill, she was, the hotel and gym got a new makeover, the person asked where the remote was, you know, you can go on and on. How they showed how the environment changed and how that changed her communication. Did you guys notice anything? How your environment impacted what and how you communicated? And what things prompted you to communicate? Does anybody have a funny thing they communicated today? Or I don't have anything really great either, but there's always funny things like someone had an example once and it was because they were cleaning up after their dog went to the bathroom after they took a walk and they were discussing that. And so it was just funny because she was like, I wouldn't have communicated that to the neighbor walking by had I not been, you know, picking up the dog. So, all right, so we kind of go back to what is communication. We've already talked about functions of communication. We've talked about environments. So next we're going to talk about what I think to be maybe the most important role and maybe a really large role is the communication partners, okay? So when I'm talking about a communication partner, I'm talking about anyone with whom a person may, using AAC may interact. So that's really all of you as you're here, which is awesome. So parents and family members, teachers and aides, you have peers, different therapists, healthcare workers, community members, all that good stuff, all right? So these are all communication partners. It's not an exhaustive list, and it serves to illustrate how many people a person might interact with during one period of their life. You know, there's going to be key communication partners who will be the main supports for a person who is learning to use AAC. So it's just really important as much as we can, you know, to really empower our communication partners, and that's what we're going to talk about next. All right. So what I want you to think about is if a tree falls in the woods, it's kind of a funny thing. Does it still make a sound? That's up to you. We're not going to debate that topic today. But if a person is talking in the woods, is it still communication? Really, the communication is a two-way process. It involves a sender and a receiver. So when someone communicates in the woods, and they're by themselves, is it truly communication? Not really, because it's that two-way process, okay? It involves that sender and receiver. Ultimately, the success of AAC intervention depends not just on the individual who requires AAC, but also his or her communication partner. This is so important. 8 out of 10 most frequently reported reasons for device abandonment were related to partner training and support issues. Okay? This is in your packet, so you have that information and knowledge to share, you know, with your team and how important it is to train, you know, staff members, because it's a huge issue. The role of communication partners is crucial for achieving positive outcomes for people who use AAC. I can't harp on it enough. You guys all know, and that's why you're here. You have a perfect opportunity to be the best communication partner you can be and help get those devices off the shelf and into our clients' hands. So we'll talk about communication partner roles and what that looks like. So first, it looks like, you know, assisting in those operational components. So it might be charging a device or editing, as you can see here. These are really important operational components. And we're not really going to talk about these today, but if you have any questions, I'll have my information on at the last slide, and you're welcome to reach out if you have any questions about any operational use. You can be an advocate, okay? Since you are here, you're already an advocate and you want to learn, but advocating also includes getting that device off the shelf, making it available, you know, educating other communication partners as best as you can, you know, wherever it might be, okay? So at home, right? You can establish goals, identify barriers, and, you know, monitor progress as well. I usually get a lot of questions, okay, like what do goals look like? You know, how do I monitor progress and things like that? You know, there's some great resources on our website that I'll go over at the end, but also Practical AAC is a wonderful website if you haven't been on it already. We also have a lot of ideas on Pinterest. You can follow Saltillo on Pinterest, but you can also follow, many. There's Practical AAC. Lauren Enders is a good resource as well. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. So really another big communication partner role is to communicate and interact, right? When we defined communication, we talked about having a shared understanding of the mode of communication, right? Because communication is multimodal, so we're able to read other people's, body language, facial expressions, and because we have a shared understanding. So because of that, equally, we have to be able to communicate using the device in order to fully understand, the AAC user's communication with the device. So we have to communicate in that same modality, so with the device. So we learn the vocabulary to use the vocabulary to teach the vocabulary. One of my favorite phrases is talk and touch to teach AAC, okay? It is so important that we do that. So what that looks like, and I'll show you in a little bit, we'll go through some examples. But first I just want to go ahead and give you this example. So let's say, I don't know if anyone has taken piano lessons or played the piano ever, but let's imagine we haven't, okay? So how would you feel if I sat down on a piano in front of you and told you to play something without first giving you some instruction? You've never played the piano before. How would you feel? Just think about that for a second. Maybe a little nervous, maybe a little scared, maybe a little bit like, I have no idea what those notes in front of me mean. I have no idea. That is often how our device users feel when a device is set down in front of them and they are asked to say something. Just as we wouldn't expect someone to be able to play the piano without first teaching them, equally, we don't expect someone to use the device without teaching them first. I give this example a lot too, when actually we'll get to that in a little bit. But it'd just be really difficult to teach someone to play the piano without at least knowing some of the basics, right? Same applies to the device. You wouldn't expect them to play, or be a really successful AAC user if they didn't know the basics of how to use it. And how often do I see, a device placed in front of a student and it just said, okay, tell me what you want. And, that's like having them sit down in front of the piano and asking you, okay, go ahead and play me a masterpiece. And I want you to really make sure we're thinking about that. Another way to think about it is, this is the fun one, so I want you to go ahead and imagine how your client feels looking at the symbols for the first time. Okay, it can be overwhelming until it is taught. So I want you to follow the directions here and see if you can get it. You can also post it in the chat window. I'll tell you in a second. Yeah, Rachel got it. Get up and turn around and sit down. So I think we should all do that because we're sitting down right now, probably at our desks, right? Get up and turn around and sit down. Sit back down because we're not just done just yet. But this is what our clients feel like when they get that. I always tell people, we have the ability to, especially when some of those young device users get our devices, we have the ability to scan really fastly and read those words and have kind of some basic understanding because we've seen these symbols before in other settings. Our clients don't. And so this is really important, and this might be a good idea to, give staff in a classroom or give parents so they can see too, without the words, how this might look. So what we really want to do is model, right? So we talked about communicating and interacting with them, right? And we have to know the device to teach it. But what does modeling look like on an AAC device? Okay, well, let's look at modeling to verbal children. To neurotypical children, you have a communication partner who's talking, then plus the child who's a verbal communicator, and then all of a sudden it equals communication, okay? When you're modeling to individuals using AAC, if you are just talking, but they are using a device to communicate, then that's kind of confusing, right? That doesn't necessarily equal fully communication because we're not communicating in the same modes. If we change our definition of modeling, right, which basically means speaking AAC, okay, to, oh, my communication partner is using a device, and then I'll use a device to communicate, and then all of a sudden we have communication, okay? So important. Language in equals language out. What language we put into our clients is the language we're going to get out. And I always go back to this. I give this example a lot. I used to work with a lot of deaf and hard of hearing clients, and I used a lot of sign language, okay? And I know everyone's, I'm sure, familiar with the sign of more, okay? And I want you to think about this. How do you teach the sign more to a client? Do you tell them, oh, put your hand in a diamond shape and put the other hand in a diamond shape and put them together? No, you don't usually do that. You typically show them. You show them, oh, this is more, and you pair it with your verbal, like words. You say more, and then you show them more. And I want you to think about that in the same way that you use the device, right? I want you to touch more on the device and pair it with that verbalization. And that's what we call aided language stimulation. When we combine the use of symbol and words, so it's an approach in which the facilitator points out picture symbols on a child's communication display in conjunction with all the ongoing language stimulation. Through the modeling process, the concept of using the pictorial symbols interactively is demonstrated for the individual. So we're being very interactive about it, and we're showing them, hey, this is more. And I always say talk and touch to teach AAC. It's my lovely little line. Talk and touch to teach AAC. And a lot of times we call that aided language stimulation, aided language input, modeling. It can be a variety of things. So when we're talking about aided language stimulation and what that means for all of you, 50 to 125 is the number of models of words or word sequences using the user's device before seeing the student use the word later on by him or herself. So I get that question all the time when we talk about aided language stimulation. All right, well, I modeled more, 3 times, and they're just not getting it. So I don't know, maybe I should just move on to another one. And this data from Gail Van Tattenhove is showing us, no, you have to model a word 50 to 125 times, or the sequencing of words, to be able to have them use it later on independently. And that can seem like a lot, and I get that. Right? 50 seems like, 125 seems like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do that? But we'll get into that because it can be easy. If you think about 50, for instance, let's say you're modeling the word go, right? And go is in a book that you're reading, all right? And let's say you read that book and it takes you 5 minutes to read that book, but you've modeled go in that book 10 times. You do that 5 days a week. For a week, you've modeled go 50 times, like that. We just got a question in here, and I just want to go ahead and answer it. So, do you recommend having the device that is the same as the client's to model, or is modeling just right on their device sufficient? I will definitely get to that. I think the preferred method, and we can get to this a little bit, the preferred method is definitely model on their device if possible. However, I have had cases, and I've worked with individuals who they do not like you using their device, right? They're very possessive. They don't like other people touching it, which is perfectly fine. So, if you can use another device that's very similar, or a low-tech board, or chat editor, which we'll get to, that's okay too. I hope I answered your question. Great. Yeah, and I always recommend having the same, vocabulary that's on there. There's word power, for instance, we have word power 60 basic and word power 42 basic. Very similar, but the word sequences to get to the word will be different, right? So like open, for instance, is on the home page on word power 60, but open on word power 42 basic is under actions. And so there's another step to get to open. So that might be confusing for them to not see the same thing. So always try to use the same, which I know is hard when you have a lot of different users and different vocabularies in a classroom, but as much as you can, that's important. So 500, and just to kind of give you an example, 500 is the number of times a child just beginning to talk hears a word before it is part of his or her active vocabulary, okay? So when we look to that, actually 50 to 125 is a little bit better than what, an average child would just beginning to talk really hear, how many times they hear a word before it's part of his or her vocabulary. So then I always get the question, okay, what do I model? All right, you're telling me talk and touch to teach AAC. All right, so I have to talk and touch the button, but what do I say? Well, you can say what you're saying to them, just like I'm saying to you right now, right? Or you could also say what they could say to you. There's a really great example here that I want to show you, a quick video of how she's modeling my turn. What I love about that video is that she's almost modeling almost without expectation, right? She's just saying, oh, look, it's my turn. Now whose turn is it? And she just modeled my turn on the device. Okay. You could also model what he could say. So Drew, SLP models what Drew could say. This is a great example. So those are some great examples of, what you are saying to them, right? Because she just said my turn in that first example, or what they could say to you. So she was prepping him with questions that he could ask. You can also model different syntax and pragmatics. So you can, model eat more cookie, right? Just giving him more, or the client more words to model and use. You could model pragmatics, so eat cookie please, okay? Using some of those social functions there. You can model mistakes or repair strategies, like, uh-oh, I need to clear my message first, right? And hit clear. Or, oh, I meant to hit, I hit eat, but I meant to say ate, and you put ate. Some different operational uses. You can say, oh, you know what? It's not loud enough for mom to hear. I better turn that up, and you turn up the volume, okay? Or even saying, oh, give me a minute so I can try my sentence again, right? And just asking that device user for a little patience too, so that they can ask for, patience when they need it as well. This is another quick thing I just want to make sure I mention. I always say model at the client's language level and model his or her access method. Quick story about modeling at a client's language level. I was working with a team. I was a speech pathologist in the school, and we were working on the word feel as a core word, and the aide and parapro was wonderful, and she was like, hey Liz, I'm looking for some more stuff to do with this client. Do you have like a core word of the, do you have like a book? And I was like, oh yeah. So I printed out this core word of the week book on feel, and I said, oh, just use this for the next week. I'm just working on feel, and I made sure she knew where feel and feelings were. So I come back the next week, and I was like, hey, how did that go? And she was like, oh, it was terrible. And I said, oh, why? She's like, I don't know. Can I just come watch you and see how you would read it with him? And I said, sure. So I'm showing her, and it was kind of like a longer book, but I was just modeling feel sad or feel mad. And this was a brand new device user, and she was trying to find every single word in the book on the device, okay? And the device user had lost interest almost immediately, right when she started it, and it was just too much for her to do as well. And so what I always say is model at their language level as much as you can. So if they're at a one-word level, research shows only go 1 to 2 words above what they're at. So that aide or parapro, I mean, she was wonderful, but she was modeling 7 to 8 words at a time and totally lost focus for that client. And so, and it was really hard for her as she was learning the device too. And so, he was at a 1-word level, so I was really only modeling feel sad and feel happy, only doing 2 words at a time. And once I did that, he attended for the entire book. I'm not saying that you're gonna have, great attention success all the time, but it's just really important that make sure we're modeling at the client's language level. So what can I use to model? And this goes back to Lauren's question. A companion device is also ideal too. If you have another device that's exactly like theirs, that's awesome. You can use the client's device, like I said. You can use low-tech versions as well, as I mentioned. So these are these low-tech communication boards. These are actually available for free on our website, and I'll show you at the end where they are located, but they're a wonderful resource. You can use the iPad with the Touch Chat app as well, and that has a lot of our vocabulary. And you can use Chat Editor too, which I'll show you at the end as well. So we don't have time to go over this, but I just want to show you that we do have these core boards here that you can practice. Okay. So we're going to do a quick transition here for the last about half an hour. We're going to go ahead and talk about creating opportunities, because that's a really important part of the communication partner and their role, because how do we have to create those opportunities for our device users to communicate. So we have to arrange the environment to help communication occur. Right? So what are communication opportunities? Really, it's any situation in which someone can communicate, but we have to make sure they're authentic, they're motivating, they're meaningful, they're age appropriate, right? So I know lunch and snack time is used as a communication opportunity, but sometimes those aren't always the best opportunities for that authentic communication, because we typically focus on wants and needs rather than more of those, maybe how we're feeling or about the weather, what we have to do, right? We're just only focusing on those wants and needs at the moment. So kind of thinking about more opportunities that they can be truly authentic. So who creates these opportunities? Well, you do as the communication partners, right? Because technology is just the tool. It's the people and their interactions that are communication. So what I want to do is I want to kind of go back to typical communication, all right? So this is the 23-month-old eating a snack. And I want you to think about how many communication opportunities he has during this video, because it is amazing. So if you want to, you can actually keep track of it. Just make like little tick marks on your thinking about your communication sheet. On the bottom of that activity worksheet, you actually have kind of an area where you can kind of put tally marks, but if you just have a sheet of paper, that's fine. Just tally down how many communication opportunities he has to communicate, because it's amazing. So we're going to watch this video. All right. So I love that video. I think it's so cute. So when we look at the different functions of communication he had too, he requested, he denied, he accepted, he commented, he asked questions, he relayed past events, right? He directed an action, he answered a question, just all these different things. So I'd love to know, does anybody have any guesses about how many communication opportunities he had? So how many times he had the opportunity to talk? Anybody have any good posts in the chat window? He had 46 communicative turns in 3.5 minutes. Think about that for our AAC users. Do they have that many in 3.5 minutes to communicate? So why create those opportunities? Because AAC users have fewer opportunities to communicate. It's been cited in the research all the time. They have fewer opportunities. And people are more likely to communicate when they have a reason for doing so. When there are opportunities, though, they typically focus on requesting and labeling, and they're a result of closed-ended questions. So we are giving our AAC users some opportunities to communicate, but when we do, it's only to request, and it's usually, do you like this? Do you want this food? We don't ever, so we need to change that. We need to make sure that we're creating those opportunities. How many opportunities do we need? Well, if we look at the numbers, 36,500 is the number of hours a typical 9 to 12-year-old has been exposed to and immersed in oral language. It'll take 701 years for an AAC user to have that same experience if they only use a device, during speech therapy. Okay, because they're not exposed to that many hours in a day immersed in their language, which is AAC. So that's how it's so important. So let's go ahead and really, 200 is really the number of opportunities a day that some researchers have suggested. So what does that look like? Well, if we do one activity, like I suggested before, whether it's reading a book, whether it's playing bubbles, which I'll talk about at the end, there's at least 5 or 10 opportunities for communication and to provide those communicative opportunities. So how do we get started? We select an activity in which we can create opportunities from. So we want to make sure that activity is motivating and meaningful. It's relatively brief, but occurring 3 to 4 times a week, and it elicits communication from typical peers, and it's reasonable to complete or support. I think it's really important to make sure that it's elicits communication from typical peers too, and making sure that we're, creating that social interaction piece. So one of the resources you have is called Look, Plan, Do, Creating Communication Opportunities. This is in your toolbox and under the handout under materials. Right? So you're welcome to pull that up now or just look on it. I'll show you kind of how we fill it out on the PowerPoint here. So what we do first is we look, plan, do. So we stop and we look at the environment of the activity. So we chose an activity and we figure out, okay, who is communicating? All right, what is already happening? So maybe we'll pick and snack at this point. The teacher announces snack, the students wash hands, the students sit down. Where are things located? So we just stop and really look. Okay, is the device on the shelf or is it in front of the student at the snack table? Where's the communication partner? Where are the materials? Where's the food that they want? We plan for opportunities by modifying the environment. Put that food up. Move things out of the way. Oh, my favorite is putting materials in an opaque bag called my magic bag. Putting those materials in a magic bag, and they have to ask, have things up on a shelf. Maybe it's only giving a small amount, only giving them 1 cookie instead of 3. Setting it up so the client needs help. Maybe it's, you know, tightening up those bubbles really, really hard and then giving it to the client, and then they have to request help to get the bubbles that they want. Maybe it's involving peers so that they can help, and it's really that wait and look expectantly. So much of this is just that wait time is so important because that really provides those opportunities for communication. You also can plan for opportunities by determining what the client could say, right? You can kind of sit down and think about that other sheet, that choosing functions of communication sheet, you know, targeting, making sure we're targeting a variety of functions. We consider what our typical peers are saying, right? I have a quick story about this. I was working with I was a speech path here, and this team kid had gotten a device, and they really wanted him, he was getting up to get a drink of water, but they really wanted to request and make sure he was requesting to get up because they didn't like him just getting up in the middle of class. So, okay, fine. So we taught him, oh, you know, you can ask for a drink of water. So he was great. By the end of the year, he was always raising his hand and asking for a drink of water using his device. But then I noticed, I was in the classroom one day, that other kids were just able to get up and not ask for that drink of water and just get up and get the drink of water. And so I said, you know, well, do they have to ask for a drink of water? And the teacher was like, no, they can get up. And I said, well, then my client doesn't need to ask either, because we want to consider what typical peers are saying. I think that is so important when we want to plan for opportunities and what the child could say, because, you know, in that case, now asking for a drink of water has become work for that student because nobody else has to do it, only they have to do it. Making sure we're considering their language level, consider using words or pre-stored phrases, which is really important. We're going to talk about this choosing activity first worksheet as well in a little bit. So what do we do now? We help the client communicate. We know the vocabulary. It's so important to really familiarize yourself with the vocabulary. We model the vocabulary, that talk and touch to teach AAC. We are talking and we are touching so that they know where those icons and buttons are. We provide that active feedback. I think that is so important as we do that. You know, if they make a mistake, that's okay. Be like, oh, you hit the carrots, but I think you meant the cookies, right? Or something like that. So we look at the environment of the activity, we plan for opportunities, and we go do it. So important. That's a really great handout to use, like with a team, to sit down with an IEP team and say, all right, we need to create more opportunities. How can we do that? Sit down, think of an activity, and go for it. The one resource I did want to show you is this choosing core vocabulary activity first approach that was mentioned when choosing activities. This is also in your materials packet. On the next slide, we actually filled it out for you. So I want to go over kind of how this is. And you have a blank copy in your materials, so definitely you know, you're welcome to fill it out, but I'm just going to explain to you how it is filled out. So this is called choosing core vocabulary activity first. What we did in the middle is we picked a motivating item, activity, or lesson topic. And in this case, it was bubbles, because that is everybody's motivating topic, motivating item, I should say. So what we did is if we go around the circle, you can kind of see at first we started with associated questions, you know. So these are some things that we can target and have the client, AAC user, say when we're working with bubbles. These are also things that we can model when working with bubbles. So, you know, we have where go, what's that, can I? If we go over to the right, under words to initiate a request recurrence, we have go, my turn, and more. Words to negate, so we talked about, oh, they could say all done and stop. They don't want to do bubbles anymore. We talked about associated nouns, you know, we can, you know, make sure we're showing them where bubbles is. They can say bubbles, wand, container, lid. They can use describing words, such as big and little, wet and round, up and down. We can talk about who or what does the action, I, me, you. You keep going around, there's action words. So open, pop, blow, but what we did is we talked about, you know, maybe there's more core words that we could use. So in this case, you know, blow or chase could become go, or do could become pop or blow. And then we talked about how we felt about it. So feelings, so uh-oh, I like it, cool, fun. I love this resource, and I really think it's very helpful for a lot of teams. Maybe you've seen it before. I've recently had some teams, you know, picking even a lesson topic that maybe they're not using a device very well in, and this kind of helps them sit down and think about, okay, what could we model and what could they say, you know, thinking about these different communication functions. And for instance, I get math a lot as a topic in the school, specifically as I just don't really know how to target the device, or, you know, how to use the device in math. And we write down math as the lesson topic, and we go around and think about all the different ways we can use the device during math. I just had a team, it was a clinic. They have different rooms, and so they have like a train room and a puzzle room. And so what they did is they posted this. They made like the motivating item was puzzles, and they created this lovely sheet. And so they wrote in all these different things we could say with puzzles, and then they printed it out and they taped it in their room. So that way any therapist that was in there with puzzles, and even like OTs and PTs and other therapists could model with the device, you know, using that. So just some really great ideas. I encourage you to use this resource. It's a really wonderful resource. All right, so next we really evaluate. Make sure, have you included those targeted words and phrases across functions of communication? Is it meaningful and motivating? Is it age appropriate? Are you modeling, right? Always going back to evaluating to make sure that we're doing that. And do you as a communication partner know your role? We're almost done here. We've got a little bit more time, so I just want to go over some other tips and tools as well. So something I mentioned earlier was Chat Editor. I'm not sure if that many people are familiar with it, but I just do want to go over that. We have a Chat Editor button capture. This is a recently added feature. It captures the button sequences for use in any document that has copy and paste capabilities. So if you can see here, this is Chat Editor, something you can download from our website. It is free. It's a computer emulation software, so when you download it, it can have full capabilities as a device. So it has all the vocabularies in there that a device would have. It does not have voice output until you plug it in to a NovaChat device, but you still have full capabilities in there. So what you can do with this Chat Editor is you can create visual supports. So like different button sequences, like I turn it on. You can create visual reminders in the environment. You can highlight different buttons. You can hide buttons on here. With this Chat Editor button capture, what you can do is you can, say I love to read, and then you can hit copy to the clipboard, and you can paste it into a Word doc, which is really fun. And I'll go out and show you that as we get towards the end here. You can also attend free webinars on there as well. So a couple things I just want to show you because I promised you that I would show you here. I'm going to get out of my PowerPoint really quickly and go to Chat Editor. I want to make sure you guys can see it. So right here, this is Chat Editor that I have pulled up here. Hopefully you can see. Here, this is how, so right now I have WordPower 60 Basic pulled up. And as you can see, it has full capability. You're going to hear it too. You know, the great thing, if you hit this capture button, I'm just going to show you how this works. Let's say you wanted to capture and label the environment for visual supports, and you want to put turn it on. You can actually, you'll see how it captured that after I hit capture. If I hit copy to the clipboard, it's going to erase it. And then if I open up a Word doc, you can see I've already played with this a little bit today. You can copy that, turn it on. Okay. I have some people who really like to do this and to learn, honestly, the button sequences as well. So I've had teams that are like, oh, maybe we're working on desert animals. And you want to make sure that the paras and teachers in the room know how to get to desert animals, okay? So you turn on the capture feature and you say, all right, this is how you get to desert animals. You hit groups, then desert, and then lizard, right? And you copy that to the clipboard and you print that out for the whole staff so that they know how to get places. And like I said, when you go back to modeling and everything that we've talked about today, it is so important that everyone knows where those buttons are and the vocabulary, because that's going to be the first step. We go back to the piano, right? You have to teach it and you have to know it in order to teach it. So it's just really important. The other thing I wanted to show you briefly, because I know I mentioned it earlier, and then I'll break for a couple questions if we have any. On our Saltillo website, so just saltillo.com, there's an implementation tab here. Under implementation, you're going to see Chat Corner. This is a wonderful resource. I highly recommend going here. But I did want to show you where you can find those low-tech communication boards to model. Under Chat Corner, on the bottom left-hand side, you have these low-tech communication board options. Okay. When you select that, this will come up and you'll see that you have options to download pretty much quite a few of our vocabularies. You also have just manual communication boards, a Spanish version, and you also have poster sizes. So they're all there for you. If you go ahead and click on one, and I'm just going to click on Word Power 60 Basic, you'll see that it'll open up as a PDF, and it is all ready for you to print. You'll see it gives you, you just print out this PDF and you're all set. So that's always under Chat Corner. I just wanted to go ahead and show that to you. All right, we have a few more minutes left and I can show you some other things, but I want to make sure there's no other questions. And go ahead and open it up for any questions. Or I can ask you guys, what will you do upon leaving here today? Maybe what will you do differently or continue? Are there any other resources you need or want? Okay, well, I do want to go ahead and say thank you. I mean, we're still open and I want to show you one more thing if we have some time, but I'll just wait just a few more seconds to see if anyone will answer. But this is my information. You're welcome to go on saltillo.com. My email address is liz.heisler@saltillo.com. You can also join us on social media. And those are references. All right, I did want to go back since we just have like 2 more minutes and show you where some, oh, the handouts are really helpful for brainstorming. Thank you, Mary. I love those handouts too. You know what, and that's actually what I was just about to show you. If you go under that chat corner again, so implementation to chat corner, those handouts are actually on this website. So if that choosing core vocabulary activity first is right here, which is really, really nice. You'll also have some books that you can work with. And we also have this active with AAC, which is another wonderful resource as well. There's just ideas of how to use core in different, I'll show you really fast. Let me pull up. Dinosaurs is the one I just looked at. So this is a fun one. So if the child really loves dinosaurs, you can pull up, there's a 1-word, 2-word, and 3 words, and it gives you exactly what to model and what to work on, which is so nice. I know for all of us, you know, hospitals, schools, clinics, wherever you are, I know it's busy. I know it takes a lot of time. So this is another great resource, you know, to just print out and have. And you actually, if you use a low-tech board, you have the fringe available as well for those. So really, I always recommend going to our website as much as you can and, you know, just browsing around and finding everything. The other thing I did want to mention too is if you're looking for any other like support or education, we do have more implementation classes available. Even tomorrow and Thursday, we have goal classes online, and we have different things about data logging. There's also, under support and education, there's recorded webinars. I do love these as well. They have opportunities where you can, you know, if you wanted to explore more about Chat Editor, what I showed you earlier, you can. Just anything you really want will be here. Well, without further ado, if there's any more questions. Thank you, Rachel. Love Chat Editor, I'll be downloading it tonight. Great, I'm so happy, Molly. Yeah, that's actually, just so you know, if you're still on here, Molly, that's under downloads. Okay, if you go under downloads and go to Chat Editor, you're just going to click all downloads here again. And if you agree to that end user agreement, you can download the latest version, which is 2.23. You will be able to download it. Okay. I will tell you too, if you have a Mac, it is not Mac. It will not go on a Mac computer. It'll only go on a PC. I should have mentioned that earlier. But a lot of times you might be able to find a PC computer that you might be able to use. So hopefully that works out. So that's under Chat Editor, all downloads. Thank you very much. Let us know if you need anything else.